Imagine waking up tomorrow morning to a knock on your door. It's not the mailman. It's not a neighbor. It is a federal agent holding a piece of paper signed by the President of the United States. The paper says that owning the silver in your safe is no longer a right. It is a crime. You are given a choice. Hand it over to the government for a fixed paper price, or face 10 years in prison and a $10,000 fine. You think this sounds like science fiction? You think this sounds like a conspiracy theory? It has happened before. In 1933, under Executive Order 6102, the U.S. government confiscated the gold wealth of its citizens to bail out a bankrupt banking system. Today, the system is bankrupt again, but this time, they don't want your gold. They want the one metal they desperately need to build their missiles and green energy grid. They want your silver, and the legal framework to take it is already in place. To understand the threat, we must look at the precedent. In the depths of the Great Depression, the government was broke. They needed to print money to inflate their way out of debt, but they were constrained by the gold standard. Citizens were hoarding gold because they didn't trust the banks. So, President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed Executive Order 6102. It forbade the hoarding of gold coin, gold bullion, and gold certificates. It forced Americans to sell their real money to the Federal Reserve in exchange for paper money. Immediately after confiscating the gold, the government devalued the dollar by 70%. They stole the wealth of the people to save the state. The frightening part is that this executive order was never fully repealed. It was simply suspended. The power to seize strategic assets during a national emergency still sits in the Oval Office today. In 1933, gold was the strategic money. In 2026, silver is the strategic material. The U.S. government lists silver as a critical mineral. This is a legal designation. It means silver is essential for national security. We cannot build Tomahawk missiles, fighter jets, or satellites without it. We cannot build the solar panels required for the Green New Deal without it. Currently, the U.S. has no strategic stockpile of silver. We sold it all. With China draining the global vaults, as we discussed in our last video, the U.S. military is facing a supply chain collapse. When the government has to choose between your right to invest and their need to build weapons, they will choose the weapons every time. They will not call it theft. They will call it national security. Confiscation doesn't always mean men with guns taking your metal. There's a softer, sneakier way they will do it. It is called a Windfall Profits Tax. Let's say silver goes to $150, as we predicted. You bought it at $25. You have made a massive profit. The government will pass a law saying, because silver is a strategic resource, any profit made on it is taxed at 80% or 90%. They let you keep the metal, but they steal the profit. They did this with oil companies in the 1970s. They effectively confiscate the value while leaving you with the physical object. This creates a disincentive to sell, which freezes the market, forcing you to trade it on the black market to realize any actual gain. The modern version of Order 6102 won't be signed with a pen. It will be coded into the blockchain. The central bank digital currency, CBDC, is the ultimate confiscation tool. If you try to sell your silver for CBDCs, the transaction will be flagged. The government can program the digital dollar to reject purchases of non-approved assets. They can make it illegal for coin shops to accept cash. If you can't buy or sell silver within the legal banking system, it becomes contraband. You will be forced to trade it in back alleys like a criminal. By controlling the on-ramps and off-ramps of money, they can effectively ban silver ownership without ever coming to your house. There is another law you need to know, the Defense Production Act of 1950. This gives the president broad authority to force companies to prioritize government contracts. In a silver shortage, the president can invoke this act to force miners to sell 100% of their production to the government at a fixed price. This means the supply of silver eagles and bars to retail investors would stop instantly. The mints would be nationalized. You wouldn't be able to buy new silver. The public market would disappear, leaving only the government market. If you hold silver now, you have it. If you don't, you will never get it. This is supply-side confiscation. We are already seeing this happen in the East. China restricts the export of silver. They have strict capital controls on gold. Why? Because they view these metals as state assets held in trust by the people. If the state needs it, the state takes it. As the U.S. moves towards a more centralized command economy to fight its debt crisis, we will adopt similar measures. The West is becoming more like the East. Freedom of capital is a luxury that bankrupt nations cannot afford. And make no mistake, the United States is bankrupt. Before they take your silver, they will make you the enemy. Watch the media narrative shift in 2026. They will start calling silver stackers hoarders. They will say you are unpatriotic for holding metal while American factories are starving for resources. They will blame the high price of solar panels and electronics on speculators who are cornering the market. This is psychological warfare. They turn the public against you so that when the confiscation order comes, the average citizen applauds it. They did this in the 1930s, calling gold owners slackers. Prepare to be vilified for being right. The infrastructure for confiscation is already being built. Look at the 1099-B reporting rules. When you sell precious metals, dealers are often required to report that sale to the IRS. They are building a database of who owns what. They know who bought the monster boxes. They know who raided the vaults. When the order comes, they won't have to search every house. They will just send a letter to the people on the list. Dear citizen, our records show you purchased 500 ounces of silver in 2024. Please report to the nearest Federal Reserve branch to exchange it for digital dollars. Privacy is your only defense, and privacy is dying. So, is it hopeless? No. There are ways to protect yourself, but you must act before the law changes. History shows that numismatic, collectible coins were exempt from the 1933 confiscation. This is why many wealthy investors buy vintage coins rather than generic bars. They are betting on the collector loophole. Additionally, smaller transactions, under $10,000, conducted in cash at local coin shops, often do not generate a paper trail. The goal is to be invisible. If the system doesn't know you have it, they can't take it. Disclaimer, this is not legal advice, this is historical analysis. If you store your silver in a bank safety deposit box, you're making a fatal mistake. During the bank holidays of 1933, safety deposit boxes were sealed. FBI agents stood by while owners opened them, looking for gold. If you hold your silver in a bank vault, it is within the reach of the banking regulators. If you hold unallocated silver in an ETF, you don't own silver. You own a paper IOU that will be torn up in a crisis. The only safe jurisdiction for your wealth is your own possession or a private non-bank vault in a jurisdiction outside of the US, EU, UK nexus, like Singapore or Cayman. We are in what historians call a fourth turning, a period of crisis where institutions are destroyed and rebuilt. In every fourth turning, the American Revolution, the Civil War, the Great Depression, property rights are violated. The government becomes desperate. It breaks its own constitution to survive. Expecting the government to follow the rules in a debt crisis is naive. They will change the rules to suit their survival. Confiscation is not an anomaly. It is the standard operating procedure for dying empires. What will trigger the confiscation? It will likely be a currency crisis or a war. If the US dollar index crashes below 80, or if a hot war breaks out with China, the national emergency will be declared. At that moment, all strategic resources will be nationalized. Silver, being both a monetary metal and a strategic war metal, will be the first to be locked down. The price might be frozen at $50 while the black market price hits $200. You will be forced to choose between obeying an unjust law or becoming a criminal to preserve your family's wealth. Look at India for a modern example. The Indian government constantly tries to restrict gold imports. They raise taxes. They demand ID. They launch gold monetization schemes, trying to get citizens to hand over their gold to the banks for interest. Why? Because the private ownership of gold undermines the central bank's control. The citizens of India know this. They refuse to hand it over. They bury it. They wear it. They hide it. We must adopt the Indian mindset. The metal belongs to the family, not the state. If confiscation happens, silver trading won't stop. It will just go underground. A black market will emerge instantly. In Argentina, in Venezuela, in Zimbabwe, whenever the government bans real money, the people trade it in secret. The street price becomes the real price. Having silver in a confiscation scenario gives you power, but it also brings danger. You have to know who to trust. You have to know how to barter without exposing your stockpile. The skill of the future is not just investing, it is OPSEC, operational security. The very fact that we are having this conversation means the window is closing. Once the order is signed, it is too late. You cannot buy insurance after the house is on fire. You must acquire your physical position now, while it is still legal, while the premiums are manageable, and while you can still use cash. Every ounce you secure today is an ounce that is outside the system. It is freedom insurance. The good news is that confiscation is incredibly hard to enforce in the modern age. There are hundreds of millions of ounces scattered in millions of homes. They cannot search them all. They rely on fear and voluntary compliance. In